Hello, listener. You will be able to enjoy Cosmic Motion even if we're discussing a movie you have not yet seen. But as we're talking about many elements of this film and will almost certainly spoil some aspects, if you'd rather not know anything in advance, watch the movie first. Then come back and join our discussion. And now, on with our show. Wowza! Welcome to episode 23 of Cosmic Motion, an audio program where filmmakers discuss motion pictures, good, bad, and ugly, and always interesting throughout the cinematic cosmos. We're recording this on May 4th, 2025. I'm here with the perpetually sexually awakening Colin Dixon. Colin is a multifaceted multimedia editor.
Wow, well, I was not prepared for that. And I am joined by the wiliest polecat this side of the Czech Republic, William the Boo Boudel.
This week,
Bill is a writer, actor, director, Tor Johnson, Tory spelling, all the Tors.
Hello. This week, our guest is Alison Star Locke. Alison Star Locke moved around a lot as a kid, mostly in San Antonio and then Oakland. She earned a BFA in filmic writing from USC, where she won the Jack Nicholson Screenwriting Award. She began her career as a story producer for reality TV and writing, directing, and producing numerous shorts. Her scripts have placed in numerous contests, including Slam Dance, The Bloodlist, Nichols, and Screamfest. After staying home to advocate and care for her daughter, who was diagnosed with autism, she returned to work to make The Apology in 2022, her first feature as a writer-director. The Apology is a Christmas psychological thriller starring Anna Gunn, Linus Roach, and Janine Garofalo, and is now available on Hulu, Shudder, AMC+, Blu-ray, and VOD. She recently wrote, directed, and produced a new comedy horror short film, Pickup Time, which is about to complete its festival run. She lives with her husband and daughter in Los Angeles area and is forever addicted to Chipotle tacos and talking about The Shining. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for being here.
We've been wanting to have you on the program for a while, and I'm glad we're finally doing it. This is exciting.
Yeah, Valerie, let's have our discussion.
Absolutely. Well, but before that,
yes,
we want to talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
When you were a young chillin', what was the motion picture that caught your fancy, that inspired you and turned you onto films?
Oh, The Goonies.
Oh,
I'm one of the Goonie generation.
For sure.
Yeah. Never Say Die. I had seen some movies before that I really loved. I loved E.T. I loved Poltergeist. Mm-hmm. But I'm too little to really understand what I was looking at.
Yeah.
It's more like, it kind of blew my mind, but I didn't know what it was. But The Goonies I saw and became obsessed with and has, at last count, had seen it 143 times.
Holy smokes.
Because I am a nerd, so I would also count them.
I've seen The Goonies many, many times, but I'd not counted them, and I doubt I've seen it anywhere near 143 times. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Wow.
So, so I love that. And I still forever love ensemble movies. Mm-hmm. It's funny how those things will you will see the effects, even though I write stuff that's completely different. I don't tend to write adventure stuff. I don't tend to write things for kids. Mm-hmm. But it was just, I felt like I could see myself in it. And I just loved it. The one that made me want to be a director, though, was several years later, was Taxi Driver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because of the, especially the hallway shot where he's on the phone and the camera can't even bear to look at him anymore and it pans over.
Pans over, yeah.
It's like,
dollies over, yeah. That's great. Wonderful, wonderful moment. You do many things in filmmaking. Which one, do you have a favorite aspect? Do you prefer writing or do you prefer directing or producing or all of them?
I love them all because they scratch different itches, but I think my core soul is writing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I do tend to be I kind of have to direct them and produce them too, because I do tend to have, as one of my producers very sweetly said, bookcases in my mind, mm-hmm. just of all the information about this story. So mm-hmm. I really get very immersive about it. So that does still feel like, teenage little Allie writing her stories. Yeah. You're just forever that kid.
That's great. What kind of stories were you writing as a teenager?
I was trying to write things that were It was really varied. It would be like, I remember the first script I ever wrote was a short script about two women on a date. And I am very straight. So I was just basically trying to be like, oh, I'm going to write something that's about, I want to see more in movies.
Right.
But it was, of course, terrible because like I had some gay friends, but nobody was telling me about their dates. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it wasn't really anything I could write to with any authority.
Sure.
But then I also wrote a lot of very dark family dramas and a lot of very dark. I was obsessed with genocides.
Oh, wow.
So that was, I think, my kind of gateway into horror films was just like real life horror.
Sure. Sure.
And so to this day, I still have a love of like intense survival kind of horror. I love all kinds of horror, but I have noticed that not everyone in the horror community wants to watch someone just make it after all of this fight, kind of feeling. And I think that comes from that history nerd side of me that's like fascinated with, the killing fields and the Nazis and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Speaking of horror, can you tell us a little bit about your film, The Apology?
Oh, yes. It is a Christmas psychological thriller, and it is set in a small town in Minnesota. So this woman, Darlene, lives alone. She's getting ready to host her first Christmas in decades. Mm-hmm. She's been looking for her missing daughter for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And she's never found her, no leads, but she's been very obsessed with it. And then she gets a knock on her front door in the middle of the night, and it's her ex-brother-in-law, an old flame. And they start catching up, and then he's like, oh, I know what happened to your daughter. And they're off to the races from there.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's very much a chamber piece, very like mostly a two-hander, with a couple of other key parts, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be talking about Valerie and her Week of Wonders from 1970 from the former Czechoslovakia, now is Czechia and Slovakia. Yeah, let's talk about first impressions, guys. What struck you about good old Valerie and her Week of Wonders?
Two big thoughts is it's one of the most effective movies where it feels like an actual dream.
Okay.
That I've seen, where genuinely you're like, oh, all of a sudden there was this whole basement in my house that I've lived in my whole life that I never knew about. That's a very dream-like kind of thing. Mm-hmm. People change who they are as she's talking to them. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I thought that kind of thing was very cool and very effective. Mm-hmm. On the other side,
right,
they have a 13-year-old or maybe 14-year-old actress playing a 13 or 14-year-old girl, including nude scenes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Wasn't cool then, not even less cool now.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we try to, I think whenever, those of us that are trying to be evolving humans want to look at older movies like this, we want to look at no, we don't want to dismiss that aspect. We want to honor that horrific violation, but also have discourse around the film as well. You know? Not just sort of dismiss it. But yeah. Definitely, if that guy was still making movies, I'd be like, no, I don't want to go see any more of your movies. You're a creep. But talking about something from 1970, I believe. 1970,
yeah.
Yeah. So those were my first impressions, especially once I realized, because she looks 13 in the movie. Yeah. And then when I, did some research afterwards, I was like, oh, geez, she really was.
Yep. She was like in 8th grade, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. Yeah. She's my daughter's age. Not cool, dude.
Yeah.
And my daughter looks like a grown woman. This girl didn't even look like a grown woman. There wasn't any aspect of that was like, but yeah.
Right. Colin?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recognize that kind of binary nature of it and the dreamlike quality that you're talking about. And I've actually, now that you're describing it, I mean, that's the dreamlike nature of it. It does actually mimic the structure of a dream where things are transforming the way that you describe, Alison. I think that was my first impression of it. Well, first of all, I want to throw out a disclaimer. I am absolutely sensitive to exactly what you just described. I think vulnerable people should not be in a position to be exploited, period, especially at that age. I wasn't aware of the actress's age the first time I saw it, but I was still aware that this was definitely like a young person, not an adult. But I guess I'm going to chalk it up to my naivete. At the time, it didn't bother me. Reflecting on it now, I totally understand it. And I think that that's the right impulse to have. But I've also had this conversation with a lot of people, and off mic, Bill and I have kind of already shared our feelings about the movie. And I knew this discussion was coming. So I kind of wanted to get kind of a census of opinions. And I talked to a lot of Europeans, particularly some that are currently living in Prague, who I won't name. And I talked to my wife about this and tried to get some perspectives that weren't my own. And I was surprised that a lot of the resounding opinion was, don't impose your Western
Yes,
American
that's what
values
Europeans
on
often
us.
say about this topic. Yes.
Right. And I don't think that dismisses it or can excuse it. And I think that shouldn't wash away the ick factor that you absolutely should naturally feel watching this film. But I guess that was kind of the prevailing feeling that I had when I was watching it. I talked to somebody who was talking about how, there used to be a nude beach by their house. This was a German person. And they were saying that, for them, it was normal to see people of all ages nude all the time. There are public bathing spaces where there are actually signs with like the little line through it says no clothing, no swimsuits, things like that. And they were saying that things like this can actually kind of help. And this is their logic, not mine, but they're saying they can kind of help dispel the manufactured image that young people can have of the human body being surrounded by images like that, and that the naked form is nothing to shy away from. So, I mean, I have all of that I'm wrestling with all that in my head while I'm watching this film.
Yeah, I get that.
And I want to I want to buy that. I do feel like because of the nature of the plot, because of the narrative rather,
right,
it's kind of hard to be all on board for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean that's the thing to take into account is the plot and what it's about.
And so I guess just armed with that European perspective, but also knowing what this narrative is trying to feed us, I think I guess it has to be contextual. For me, this one didn't set off enough alarms where I felt like it was a despicable object, but I wouldn't be able to effectively argue against anybody that did feel that way. I did see an interview with Jaroslava Schallerová. Is that how you pronounce it?
You tell me.
Where she was talking about her experience, and it sounds like it was above board.
Yes, yes, that's a good point. Yes.
She made it sound like the only time that she was ever uncomfortable on the set was there's a scene where they literally light her on fire at a stake.
Yep.
She was saying that that's the only time she kind of felt any kind of trepidation. So it's hard to know how to feel about that stuff. I tried to divorce it from my mind while I was watching it. Maybe that's not the right approach, but that's how I approached it. And so because of that, I was a little bit more drawn to it. I appreciate its experimental nature. And I think it's kind of a curio that does deserve its cult status, but I absolutely would not argue that you can, absolutely kick it out of bed if it makes you uncomfortable, and it probably should. So
I think I have similar perspectives to actually the two of you together. I definitely felt like it was an interesting experimental dreamlike narrative. It had a lot of amazing imagery. At the same time, I didn't think that the nudity, in my opinion, was necessarily what wasn't necessary. Again, maybe it's this American puritanical thing of, well, at least from my perspective, that maybe it's something that I kind of cringe at. But at the same time, I also understand some people may watch it for the wrong reasons. And that's not okay. And also, I think actually because she's so young, I still would go with, I wish they hadn't done that. She's so young that how would she even know if she felt okay with it or not? And even if she didn't later on, I wonder if she would have said so. So it's tricky. It's tricky. It's all very tricky. Yeah, I think also the fact that the narrative is about her kind of sexual awakening or at least becoming a woman, having her period, that then it's like, okay, so they're going to, and we'll talk more about what happens in the film. In fact, why don't I give my plot summary, which will give some idea of how I felt about the plot, and maybe that'll make a little more sense to everybody.
See, now this is the second time you've done this to me, Bill. But actually, I'm glad that you have, because I thought that I was supposed to be tasked with writing the plot summary for this. But however, I want you to do it because
mine is very short.
Now I want both. Can I ask for both?
That's the thing.
His is going to be longer.
Mine's like an essay, because that's the thing. It's almost impossible to. It's almost an impossible task. So I want to hear yours.
Mine is 2 sentences.
Yes.
Valerie just had her first period and is becoming a woman. This means she has to traverse a hellish landscape of grabby, kissy family members and perverts and learn how to fend for herself in a predatory world.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I think this question of consent at her age is so complicated. Because I think what you were talking about, Colin, is really right on in terms of like, well, the place and time this was made, the cultural differences between there and now is pretty substantial. But it also is like, right, part of what we've learned though since then, and even in other cultures, is like, well, that may be part of your culture, but that doesn't mean that that's still as informed as it should be in terms of like how early can you start making those choices for yourself, but also because the film is so about being a woman in a predatory world.
That's the thing. Like if they had just shown her in a movie that had nothing to do with all that stuff, then and it was justified somehow, then maybe it would be okay. But the fact that it's about this predatory nature, and it seems to be preying on her while being about a predatory nature. That's the tricky. And
that's also like part of what makes it, I mean, this is gross, but it's true. Part of what makes it effective is because they are having her appear as how these like kind of predatory people see her.
Right.
And so it's like, but on the other hand, you're like, yeah, but audiences are going to, too many of the audiences I feel like will feel that way too. So it's like I can imagine the audience for this film over the years has been a bit split, where it's like somebody like me where I'm like, oh, I really like seeing this experience put into art, this like that point in life where you start to physically develop, but you're still, kind of naive about what that actually means.
Right.
What danger and what power is involved in all of that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned Taxi Driver, and I kind of have that in my brain while I was watching this the second time, because I was thinking about Michelle Pfeiffer, and I was thinking about her being a 12-year-old in that. And she's
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster being a 12-year-old in that, and thinking, is that film in any way responsible for objectifying her? And obviously we don't ever see her naked, so she's not nearly in as vulnerable position as the actress who plays Valerie here, but it did lead to a very famous example of a now celebrity stalker. So I just wondered, I guess part of me wondered what the line is in terms of objectification, and obviously nudity. Again, that is a line that probably we should draw. But then I was coming back to the nude beach analogy that all these Europeans were using.
Yeah.
And one of a European family member of mine said, well, listen, we're very aware that there are perverts in our society and that some of them might be watching our children at these beaches.
Right.
Should we let them in and abridge our freedoms to have a nude beach? So I have all that in my brain while I'm watching this, and I'm like, yeah, I totally agree with that. But again, I feel what you guys are saying, So it's just like really, I almost begrudge the film for putting me in this position.
I know, and I want to say, Colin, I appreciate your complicated look at it, and because it's a complicated subject, and
I want to make it clear, it does make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No, but I appreciate that you're trying to put this film into the context in which it was created.
The culture, the time.
Which is important.
Yeah,
I mean, I think you do have to consider that. I think there's what everyone was doing and what the norm was around them. But there is also, like I say, like sometimes you get the perspective of being farther away from it.
Right.
But I think the other key part to it too is that, to my memory at least, there's no nude men, for example, in this movie.
True.
Right.
True.
So that's, I think, where a lot of that kind
Her
of
brother
argument,
isn't naked. Why isn't he naked?
Yeah, like there's a lot of those kinds of things that like people will make that argument, like you're too puritanical, and yes, of course we're Americans, but like, but it's also just like, okay, sure, you're gonna make that argument. Like the family nude beach makes way more sense to me, and like, well, we don't want creeps messing with anything because like creeps are gonna creep no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So I do get that idea, but yes, it's like in these contexts where it's like, yes, very often where they're like, you just don't understand our culture. And then it's like, sure, are there anything other than a young woman naked in the movie? Well, then I don't really care about your perspective as much, like it doesn't, and the Taxi Driver and what was the Brooke Shields movie where she played
Blue Lagoon,
Pretty Baby,
especially. So those kinds of questions where it's like, but especially I think Taxi Driver is more complicated because like you say, there isn't nudity, but she's also doing highly sexualized things. But I think it's also just like, how do you set that tone? Because we all, I make very dark stuff. It's like when you have a child in there, I have a child in the apology, and it's like how to make both actors feel comfortable, because funny enough, Anna Gunn was less comfortable than the child in that scene, because she was so worried about scaring her. And so it's like the tone at which you make the film, the way that you make the film, makes a huge difference. So
it does.
If the actress in Valerie did feel comfortable with her, collaborators, then that does say something. But
I'm not making a statement by saying this, but it's something that we should point out because I've seen it in various places. Apparently, her mother was on set the whole time.
Yes.
And also, she quote unquote met the love of her life.
Yes.
On the set of this. She's 13.
Yes.
So I don't know who the love of her life was.
I looked it up. He had a small part.
Okay.
A tiny part. He was only a little bit older than her. I think he was like a later teen. And they did not get together at that time.
Okay, good.
They became friends, and then years later met somewhere else, and that's who she ended up marrying.
Why do you begrudge high school sweethearts, Bill?
I'm sorry.
What if my parents met when they were 15?
I'm sorry.
If they were both 15, good job.
I keyed.
But I don't blame you, because if you didn't know the next part of that story, that would be Creepville for sure.
Yeah, and I wanted to know, and I think I looked a little bit, but I didn't find anything. So I'm glad you found that.
Well, and I also think, as you kind of suggest, Allison, yes, I mean, there's that argument that's like, keep your hands off our culture, but you can make the argument that cultures should change and evolve.
Yes.
And, going along with like the nude beach analogy, it's like, the European response that I got was, oh, should that be allowed to abridge our freedoms? And I guess maybe it should, because if you are putting anybody in a position to be exploited, that's really the issue here. Then again, another perspective that I got, which was interesting, and there's another thing that I wrestled with, was somebody was pointing out that there are a bunch of arranged marriage films that we don't shy away from. But again, I mean, I just think that it's about the level of vulnerability that you're putting your actors in. So, I mean, that's kind of what it...
And at what stage in their life they are. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess, is there a way to like move away from that controversy and still like have a discsion of this film?
I think so.
Yes.
I mean,
is it too
I think so.
interwoven? I mean, I legitimately don't know.
I think so. I mean, first of all, and I would rather that she not have been nude in the film.
Yeah.
But that is a very small part of the film.
Yes, and again, I think it was for a very specific purpose. Like it wasn't just, we've all seen plenty of films where it really wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
It's like an aesthetic choice as opposed to a point within the it's so tied into the themes of this movie, the point of the film. Yeah. So, yes, I think you can definitely still have a discussion. I think it's one of those where it's like, there are definitely worse violators, but this is still a substantial part that you have to discuss. But I think it leads also really nicely into what makes the movie special, because I don't particularly love this film or even like it that much, to be honest. But it does still get at things that I did connect with. Mm-hmm. and I think in a way that I hadn't quite seen before. So I have to give it points for that. I love some surrealness, and I love some dreamlike logic and stuff. But when it's a whole film of it, sometimes I
100% agree with you. And I'm going to talk about that more, because this film has some major flaws aesthetically, just taking all the ethics out of what we just talked about and just looking at it as a film of like, is this effective as a film? I think in many ways it is not.
Yeah.
I think that there are some things that are exceptional, like the visuals, production design, the costumes, the props. These are all beautiful. And it's shot in a town that still had a kind of a Renaissance era look to it. Like it's very old world European. And that's all wonderful. Before we go further just into that, I want to talk about the writing and begin at the beginning here. So it's based on a novel, and I'm going to murder this Czech pronunciation, Valeria a Týden divu, Valerie and Her Week of Wonders, by Vítězslav Nezval. And the screenplay is written by Esther Krumbachova, who I believe is the production designer, and Jaromil Jires, who's the director. And then a guy named Gidi Musil wrote the dialogue. Now, at the time, the first time I wrote it, I wrote, what writing? It's just a collection of random ideas that happen without much reason or significance. Also, how many times do the characters need to say each other's names?
Yeah, it's funny that there's a separate dialogue writer.
Yeah, right. It's like, maybe they should have found somebody else if they were worried about the dialogue. Yeah, and also something to be noted, and this is really interesting, Valerie was older in the novel. She and Orlik were the same age.
Yeesh.
They were the same age, so it's like
Does not help them.
yeah, something we should bring up, right? So there's that. Okay, so let's go to the production part. It's produced by G.D. Becka, considered part of the Czech New Wave or Czechoslovak film miracle, a 1960s film movement which includes films like Miloš Forman's Loves of a Blonde, 1965, Vida Chitilova's Daisies, 1966, which has gotten a real resurgence in the last several years, and G.D. Menzel's Closely Watched Trains, 1966. It's originally adapted by, as I said, Esther Krumbachova and the director, but Esther was the production designer. So big kudos to her on the look of the film.
Yes, she's the MVP.
And Krumbachova's husband is another Czech director who's even more famous, probably, Jan Nemec. He made A Report on the Party and the Guests, 1966, and he was supposed to direct it. After there was this Warsaw Pact invasion of Prague, Nemec was fired from Barandov's studio, and the project went to Jires, which is weird because his previous film, The Joke, from 1969, was banned by the communist government. So I don't understand how that works, but he was hired. Maybe they wanted it to be more pervy. It was shot between June 8th and November 6th, 1969, mostly in the town of Slavonice. They also used nearby Kosteni Vidri Monastery. And the studio is Filmové Studio Barandov. Anything you guys want to say about any of that? Any of the other, the Czech New Wave or?
Well, this is my first Czech New Wave film. So
Okay.
I really had no exposure to it apart from knowing that it was known for being challenging in every way. That they were purposely trying to like shake up the form and talk about things that were more controversial and that sort of stuff. But beyond that, and I knew that Miloš Forman, who then became a very important American director as well,
Hollywood,
had gotten his start at that time.
Yeah.
But that was about as much as I know about that movement. But I do think it's interesting to hear that it sounds like it was a fairly ruthless production process in terms of one of those very intense shoots where they were maybe wasn't the safety aspects like what I think was already alluded to, which was her fear around the fire scene.
Yeah.
That there was a feeling of maybe safety wasn't a predominant concern throughout the making of the film.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because there is such a sense of ongoing looming danger through the whole film. And I'm guessing that the actual making of the film helped influence some of that feeling as well.
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
This is like a very maximalist film that is apparently pulling from a tradition of films called pohádka, which are basically Czech fantasy films. Apparently the communist bloc did not, they're very censorious. Obviously there were certain things they were okay with, fairy tales. I think one of the most famous ones that Americans might have seen would be by dint of Mystery Science Theater, which is called Jack Frost, which is a crazy film. But there are a lot of kind of Russo-Finnish fairy tales floating around at this time. And this kind of falls into that category, these very maximalist fantasies that are loosely hinting at a plot, but are mostly tonal. And this is also one of my first forays into Czech New Wave. I have seen some of those pohádka films. I actually, this is not my first go around with Jires either. I have seen The Joke, and thematically it's kind of, well, it's not the same thematically, but visually it's kind of doing a lot of the same dual meaning work. It's an interesting experiment. I guess I'm not enough of a scholar to know just how the Soviet influence kind of shaped this thing. For instance, I think this film has a reasonably suspect view of religion, and one that I share actually. But at the same time, that sounds like that was driven by the Soviet way of thinking. So it's hard to know what Jires' actual feelings about anything are.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. I guess. But in terms of what you guys are saying about the plot, I mean, and that's kind of why I was bringing up the synopsis. I had actually written a synopsis where I tried to coherently just kind of list out the plot so we could even talk about this movie free of plot. But then just doing that, I mean, I'm looking back at it now, and it's just this checklist of things that happen. Many of which
That's the movie.
Right.
That's the movie. It's a checklist of things that happen.
Right. Many of which are not connected to one another. And again, I also don't know what the Czech relationship with vampirism is. I don't know if that's part of their folklore.
Right.
So I feel like you do have to be kind of armed with some of that knowledge before you can really make heads or tails of this. And I don't have that. I don't possess any of that knowledge. So,
yeah, me neither.
That's one of the problems. That's one of the major problems for the film for me is that if you do not have a preceding knowledge on Czech culture surrounding mythology of the cultures, and then to watch this film, you're watching a kind of, as you said, checklist or inventory of myths, of references to things that are maybe historical, and it isn't informative. There isn't exposition that is sort of putting you in the time, in the place, in the culture. And also there isn't any kind of characterization that is connecting you emotionally to the characters.
Yes.
As people, as human beings. It's very presentational. This feels like a series of tableau vivant. It's not quite as stilted as like Parajanov's Color of Pomegranates, but it is that kind of a thing where, yes, the characters get a little bit emotional, but you don't really get emotional because you really don't know these people.
Yeah, well, we also just plain old fashioned don't have an active protagonist. Like we don't have like even the antagonist is kind of like, I'll get to it. I'm gonna get what I want. It just sort of assumes he's gonna be able to, like, which is a very vampiric thing. Like, I'm gonna be able to just sort of, get you in the mood by looking at you slightly, and that, that charming kind of thing. But like, there's the slightest bit of story in terms of her grandmother betraying her for this vampire that she used to know when she was
and also
young.
Because she wants to be forever young. I think
She wants to be forever young, and then the young girl wants to be a grown up, and I really like that stuff, because it's like,
it's
that
good
is
stuff.
but it's good stuff, but it's like, I don't care about, I'm with you. I don't care about anyone.
Right.
The only thing that really produced a real emotional reaction for me was there's a church scene where there's a bunch of young, gorgeous, young women sitting in the church.
Are they the ones in white?
They're all in white.
Sometimes they're making out. Sometimes they're bathing.
Yeah, but this is inside the church, though.
Oh, inside the church. Okay.
The bathing scene was like, actually kind of sweet, because it was like, oh, the innocence of like being best friends with your girlfriends at that age. And one of the positives I think about being a woman is that feeling does kind of continue, whereas I feel like male friendship's a little more stilted.
Sure.
And we continue to be physically affectionate with each other.
But tell me the truth. Were you all making out with each other?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't
I'm just wondering.
Not in my experience, but again, I'm a straight woman, so like maybe my gay friends were having more fun than
I don't even think that they're implying that those women are gay. I think
not at all. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, it wasn't like that at all. It was more just like giving a bunch of different layers of womanhood, of emerging womanhood, right? So, but the scene in the church where the like creepy priest, who also is maybe the bad guy, we don't know. He's a bad guy, but is he the bad guy? Who knows? Who cares? I guess.
I think he's the vampire. The vampire is the priest.
Because he keeps shifting, right?
Yes.
Like that's, yeah.
And he's possibly the father also.
Well, now, so there are two priests.
Wait, but
Right.
let's let Alison finish.
But exactly. So you're like, I don't know how big a threat is this guy? I don't know. But he's very creepy because he gets up there and starts talking about how it's like, now you will enter the world of we're real into you. And we're gonna, we're gonna all like notice how beautiful and nubile and fresh you are, and now we will take you into the world of adulthood. And he's literally standing like on this pulpit bar above them.
Yes.
And these like beautiful young girls who are enjoying each other's company, but now they're not, because this guy's being a creep, are trying to be like, yeah, sounds great. But you could see in their face that they're not either understanding or they're not excited.
Right.
And so that part really got to me, because I was just like, this is, if someone had actually just sat down and said that truth at that age, like how scary that would have been,
Right.
The shift in how people are looking at the women now.
Yes,
in terms of
exactly.
like you're a child and then you're a woman all of a sudden.
Yes. And especially like just personally, I was like the first one in my classes to develop, that kind of stuff. So I had that reaction, very visceral feeling of like, I was a kid yesterday and now everybody's like looking at me, And so that really got to me. I thought that was very effective. But again, it's like, what we're saying about it being so episodic and the character work is not there. It's just not there. Like they have no interest in it.
They don't.
And ultimately, I almost never love a quote vibe movie. Right. I really want a hero's journey of some kind, even if it's an anti-hero, even if they're wrong. I need somebody to know. I need to understand why we're following this person.
Yes.
And I need to have something that's like getting in their way that isn't just like occasional.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a real strong force here. It's just a mess writing wise, like as we've said. It's like it's really and it just seems like this is kind of writer nerdy, but it's like if you hang out with enough writers, every once in a while you'll meet somebody that they're just like, well, I don't want to do it that way. And I'm like, cool. Good luck with anybody giving a shit then. Yeah. You know, like we can betray the form in various ways. We can subvert things, but you do have to have the basic thing of something that I am invested in.
Yeah, agree.
And I was not invested.
Totally agree with all that. The thing is, I am a vibes guy, but I do still want something to anchor my emotions to.
Yes. They don't need to be mutually exclusive either.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You know, that feeling that you got watching that church scene, I kind of could feel a little bit of that watching the pre-ceremony wedding scene.
Oh, that was really upsetting. Where they're just like, literally, somebody says, "Lord, have mercy on her." So there is pity for the new bride.
Yeah,
they talk about her husband is wealthy and old,
and the look on her face. I mean, you know that actress is doing a lot of great face acting in this.
Oh, she is. Yeah,
she is,
and it actually does create a moment of catharsis when Valerie does have a somewhat inexplicable lesbianic tryst with her later, but there is also catharsis in that moment because that actress is allowed to kind of like, I don't know, burst out of her shell, or I'm not sure whatever that visual metaphor is supposed to be. I guess it kind of works in that scene, even though it's a strange scene.
Well, you're just also so happy that they're away from the men.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's it.
Just instinctually, you're like, yeah, stay in your cocoon.
Yeah. Did the kind of the bed scene with her and Valerie bother you at all? Was that a little bit weird?
Not really. Funny enough, just because I think there's such a looming feeling, even though it should, I guess, right? Because it's like. But also, I don't know how old the other actress was, but I also think it's like, it's still male gazy to be sure.
100%. Yes.
But it's also like, I feel like it was trying to give us this sense of like, it felt also kind of revolutionary even for now, like in terms of this idea of like, you know what, we have all these bad guys around us. Why don't we just be happy together and be kind to each other? And they talk about it like, oh, I never get to have close girlfriends.
But do they have to make out naked in a bed to do that?
No, they really don't.
I mean, Valerie isn't naked in that instance, I think, but the other woman is, I think.
Yeah. I really wish that wasn't where it went. But at the same time, I think I'm also just still like, oh, yeah, it's tricky, right? Because on the one hand, you want as many queer representations as possible. But when you know that it is like male gaze 101, you know, it's complicated.
But at the same time, it's one of the few moments where they don't feel preyed upon.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I guess there's just that feeling of relief, you know, that they're not being preyed upon. Even though, as you say, that male gaze is still there. It's front and center. Maybe just because this movie seems to be thematically about her trying to, and you know, this is a big European champion of this movie was telling me that, you know, he's able to excuse all this, and of course because
yeah, I was gonna say
because for him he was like this film's attempt to this film is a representation of somebody trying to vanquish the way that everybody else feels about her burgeoning sexuality, and like it's for him, you know, it's a way of it's an empowerment movie for a young woman, especially if you don't see it, especially if you're not explicitly objectifying Valerie yourself. That being said, I think you can easily do that scene without that. So
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. But also, it's like, again, if you really wanted to make it a real empowerment movie, then give her goals, give her some drive, give her some agency. She doesn't really have any agency.
Right. Don't tie her agency to magic earrings.
Yes.
Yeah. What was up with those earrings? So, and then the sound effect that played every time that they presented the earrings.
That was very weird. Funny enough, though, I did have a bit of an emotional reaction to the earrings because I felt like that is a very of that age thing. Like, I'm going to get, literally, I had dangle earrings that were like a big deal. I had these I didn't even have pierced ears yet. They were like clip-ons, but I just thought that was, I'm a big kid. I'm a grown woman now.
Yeah, yeah.
Boobs and dangle earrings.
Were they just like simple pearl earrings? I guess maybe
they were representing something. I just wasn't sure what it was. Like, I think at one point she puts one in the glass of the vampire. At other points, one comes out of her mouth. They're constantly appearing.
Yeah. She feeds one to the primary antagonist, who then turns into her father.
The vampire. Yeah.
So, and I think psychoanalysis is bullshit, but there's probably we could probably mine Freud for some meaning there.
Mm.
Yeah, it's well. So I mean, if you had to like summarize the plot, which is, again, it's just virtually impossible.
Yeah.
But like, could you do it in like a paragraph? Like, I'm interested to hear you again. Like,
me?
Like if you could like try to summarize plot points and not narrative, like because there's so much. Again, it is such a checklist. But are there any that stand out and that like are extremely important? Like,
no. Well, the narrative is, I think, not what the filmmakers are caring about. Just like they're not really caring about character. I think what they're caring about are ideas. And ideas are great. However, to just throw a bunch of ideas along with visual eye candy into a film, it, to me, is also, to Alison's point, not effective.
yeah, agreed.
And so, yes, I think that it could be summarized in a paragraph. I think it would be, as you said earlier, a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be a narrative that was particularly compelling. And so, therefore, as it's presented, what is compelling are the visuals, are the actors and their look and their faces and their, but you don't feel much about them. And to Alison's point, the things that Alison was feeling something about, if I understood correctly, were not because of character, but rather because of ideas. And they were ideas that reminded you of your childhood or moments in your life that you could connect with. And that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I ask is because I feel like people who are listening to this who may not watch the film, or who maybe they're squeamish about watching it for the reasons we mentioned, may not have like a way of deciphering our conversation here. I guess I kind of wanted to like very briefly like outline the things that quote unquote happen.
Well, if you have it written down, do you want to?
It's too long, again, because it is such a checklist. So I guess what I would do is just try and briefly do it from the dome. Valerie is a young woman who is dealing with her nascent sexuality, burgeoning sexuality. We see images that are evoking her period. She runs across a character named Eaglet, who also could potentially be her brother.
This is her brother. I think we can take that to be.
But then there's also imagery that suggests maybe she's a potential partner or boyfriend or something like that. In the meantime, she's living with her grandmother, who we also see visions of being a vampire. The grandmother is in love with a priest, a Catholic priest, I'm assuming, because he comes into town with his cadre, and they're all flogging themselves at the same time.
Or he may just be a shapeshifter.
True.
We don't know.
But then there's also the primary antagonist that you both mentioned, who's a vampire and also a priest, and also possibly her father.
No, that priest who comes into town is the vampire. That is the same character. He even says so in the movie. He says, "I was the priest."
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's played by 3 different actors.
Well, no. Okay. If maybe I didn't catch things, there is a priest with a beard.
Yes, that's who
I think that's a different person.
Yes.
At least to my.
I thought that was a different character.
I thought that was a different character too.
Yes.
But this is exactly the problem. We don't even know who
But
they
the
are.
vampire priest is the guy, when you see the carriage and you see his hand throwing flowers, that is the vampire.
Yes. So I am
and
trying
he is in the pulpit, as you described, Alison.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to differentiate between the two. The priest with the beard is somebody who the grandmother is initially in love with, but then it becomes the other priest, who is also the vampire.
Right.
That's who she makes this bargain with for eternal youth. And she can secure that eternal youth by stealing Valerie's earrings.
She's gonna steal. He's gonna.
Inheritance,
They
basically.
need to take the heart of Eaglet. There's a moment where he says, "I can give Valerie Eaglet's heart and bring her back to life." Because apparently, at some point, Valerie's supposed to be dead, although she just gets up and walks away at a certain point. So
Sure.
I don't know if they just forgot or what. But she's listening to this conversation between the grandmother and the vampire, and he says, "I should take Eaglet's heart," and then the grandmother says, "No, give the heart to me so that I can live forever."
Right.
And Valerie's kind of listening with her eyes open, and I'm like, I think she's alive, guys. So yeah,
Right. And throughout all of this, there's this looming potential, or there's this thread of her parents having died mysteriously.
her parents died or left,
Right.
and then later we find out they come back. And it's a little confusing because the grandmother and the mother are played by the same actress.
Mm-hmm.
And also the vampire grandmother claims to be, I think, her aunt at one point. So
Right.
it gets all very interesting.
Right. But I guess that is as much plot as I guess anyone would really need to
Yes.
need to have in their possession to follow along with.
Which,
Yeah.
What we're
and,
saying,
and again, I don't think it's important. Like,
I don't either.
I don't.
Yeah, so I think the moral of the story is if you're confused, so are we.
Yes.
Also, I think the moral of the movie is if you're a family member or a stranger, you should make out with Valerie. Like when you meet her, you should immediately start kissing on her because
Yeah.
that's apparently how things go in this movie. Well, let's talk about Valerie a little bit. Jaroslava Schallerová. She was in the 8th grade when she starred in this. It was filmed during her summer holidays. Can you imagine? You're in the 8th grade. You're like, you want to be in a movie, little girl? Her mother was present for the shoot until September, so she did leave at some point. She was picked from 1,500 girls who auditioned. And just going back to what Colin said, she was uncomfortable during the scene where they burn her. Apparently, the crew freed her at the last minute and she got away. So I don't think their safety tactics were as OSHA cleared as they should have been, maybe. She heard someone in the crowd of people watching the shoot. She heard them say, well, they're really burning that girl. They paid her parents for her. And she never forgot it. So that's interesting, too, to the point of age of consent, age of understanding how you should be treated in life on a movie shoot. And she heard people saying, well, they're burning that girl. They paid her parents for her.
That's terrifying.
Isn't that? She said she never forgot it when she heard that.
Yeah.
Jeez, that needs to go into a different film.
The making of Valerie. Yeah. So what did you guys think of her? I mean, Colin and I think you also Alison agreed that she has an interesting face. She does. She's making a lot of interesting expressions. She's very expressive. Even though we don't really ever get to know her, she clearly has personality. There's something in there.
There is something in there, but ultimately I was kind of bored by her.
Sure.
I just, because we don't get anything. And there is an element of remove that they're doing intentionally. She is a symbol and not someone who's experiencing it, which I think is a real shame.
And that's
all of that mood and production design and everything with a character that was richer, that would have been really scary.
Yes, and also that's part of the problem with her nudity and the way she's treated in the movie. They don't characterize her. They don't give her 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
She's always objectified.
Yes.
She's objectified not only by the characters, all the characters in the movie, she's objectified by the movie itself.
Yes, and I also find it interesting, the production detail of they saw 1,500 girls.
Yeah.
For this part.
Right.
And then we have someone who is compelling, but ultimately not that interesting. So you needed to look at 1,500 girls her age. I don't know. That feels like Takashi Miike audition material there. Like, what's your deal with you needed to look at 1,500 girls to then find someone who is interesting, but not
I didn't even think of that.
as compelling. Like, that number is like a little freaky, because it's like you're not making a Spielberg movie where you have to have the most,
I just hope they all kept their clothes on for the audition.
Yeah, well, I don't know that would be true.
I wonder if they had access to script before they auditioned.
If they did, they were probably even more confused once they read it.
Yeah.
Concerned and confused. No, they probably weren't concerned.
They probably
Obviously,
read it.
as I think, we've established. Probably not,
They probably read the script and said, and so this movie is about what?
Right.
Earrings, fountains, and white nightgowns.
There's a vampire.
Bees.
But he's my father, but he's not my father.
Yeah.
I feel like there's ways to do super vibe vampire movies, like Only Lovers Left Alive. Great vibe.
That's a
vampire
vibe movie. I'll be honest
Yeah.
with you guys, and it's apparent I'm probably the only one. This was not a vibe movie. It doesn't have enough going on emotionally or tonally to have a vibe. It does have a lot going on visually, and it is eye candy.
Fair point. Yeah.
But I don't feel a vibe. Like I'm not.
Yeah, maybe it's more surrealist than vibey.
There you go.
They can be mutually exclusive.
And you can have a surrealist film that is vibey, but this one, I guess I go back to that word. It's presentational. I just feel like I'm watching a series of tableau vivant and presentations of visuals that I don't really feel anything
I mean,
about.
you asked about Valerie, and I kind of agree. Like, that number is sort of hard to defend. Maybe they needed to find somebody so striking visually that, because the thing is, I agree. It feels like Valerie is floating through a series of scenarios and caricatures.
Good word.
And the thing is, because of that, I almost felt like Valerie is like the boat that you sit in when you're riding through It's a Small World. You know, like you're very much on rails in this film. And you're, as you suggest, Bill, you're seeing this series of tableaus move past you, or in this case, move past Valerie. And maybe that's the point. I don't think that excuses the film's sort of lack of substance. But maybe if Jires, if he was here to defend himself, maybe that's what he would say. But I agree with you. I don't think it makes for super compelling drama, certainly. Yeah, I mean, that being said, I think that the actress that plays Valerie, what is her name again?
Schallerová, Jaroslava.
Jaroslava Schallerová. She does have a presence. Like, she does have a striking presence. Not one that I can put my finger on, and not one that I think the film is all that interested in, as you suggest, Alison. So it's hard to justify what that casting call was all about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I would hope what it had to do with was, does she have an it factor? Is she interesting to watch on screen? And she is interesting to watch on screen.
Well, and to be fair too, child casting is known for those kinds of numbers because you do have to like find somebody who isn't too precious and isn't too, presentational and that kind of stuff, and is still compelling.
And also somebody that you can work with, right? Like, who,
that you
these
feel
are
like you're
kids.
connecting.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, but I don't know. 1,500, like get a little more organized or something.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the other actors. Did you have something else you wanted to say,
No.
Colin? Okay. Let's talk about some of the other actors. We had grandmother Elsa / mother / redhead / aunt / vampire woman, Helena Anizova. What did you guys think of her?
I mean, she's spooky. She has a presence, but again, in terms of even trying to understand where she was at different moments, I didn't feel a lot of complexity or clarity on that. So
Yeah.
this is definitely a movie where I would never blame any of the actors.
No.
But that being said, I wasn't that into it. I mean, the actor that I found the most compelling was the gentleman who played Eaglet. I thought he was, he was the most interesting.
Or Orlik, as
Orlik.
Valerie keeps saying repeatedly.
Yeah.
Throughout the film.
What is his name even?
If you have a problem with repetition, do not watch this film, because they say Valerie, Orlik, Valerie, Orlik.
Yeah.
I mean,
at least in that case, they're supposed to be very young in love people. So like I imagine I was probably like, you
but
write
Alison,
the
they're
boy's
brother
name.
and sister.
Are they?
They are.
I don't feel like that's so funny that you guys were like, it's definitely answered. I was like, I didn't.
Oh,
think it
I
was
said that. I
definitely
think
answered.
I think Colin wasn't sure.
I don't know how definite it is. At a certain point, he's described as her brother, but then at other points, it's very clear that he's in love with her, and he's.
But he even says what does he say? The vampire, or whatever he calls him, is not our father. He's not our our father.
But again, because this is a dualistic film where she's shifting between these different realities, I don't know which reality that's supposed to belong in.
That's a really fair point too. It might be that they are brother and sister in some of them, and some of them they aren't.
Right.
And they just like to threaten them with it.
Okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, no, but I mean, but also like I
Nice.
again would hate to try and psychoanalyze this movie, because I think that if you could effectively, it would just still be nonsense. But I did think Helena Anizova, who plays the grandmother, is interesting.
I do too.
But I do think there is this weird dead behind the eyes quality that isn't her fault. In fact, there's a moment where she tries to bite Valerie, and they treat it with the pomp and circumstance of her, like dropping something on the floor. Like it's just not very like
the real
impactful.
threat there.
Right.
Yeah.
She does the same thing with the vampire. You remember she bites him, and all she does is she kind of makes a little noise like and then she pulls back. There's no blood on her teeth. I don't even know if she bit him. That happens too. That was very odd.
Well, so I mean, I guess this comes back to something that you guys pointed towards, is that the production design is really doing most of the heavy lifting for this movie, and I actually adore the production design.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's very striking.
It's amazing.
It's worth the price of admission. That being said, there is some jank to this film, and particularly like in the costuming, there are literally these kind of like redneck teeth that they do for the vampires. They don't do fangs. They do these big kind of like like
redneck teeth. Yes.
I mean, it's like if you go to this like Spirit Halloween store and you get like the Jimbo Bob costume or whatever, those are going to be the teeth that they include in there. But it's just weird, and maybe this is not a film that was made to be watched like on a 4K release on like your 75-inch screen or whatever, but just caked makeup and things like that.
Yeah, when the grandmother just looks like a woman with a bunch of gray makeup on.
Right,
like there's no prosthetics.
White
no
makeup in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
too.
They just made her pale and like, okay, you're old.
Yeah, there's this underground chamber that they keep finding themselves in, and there's these ropey spider webs.
Yeah, I like the spider web.
Oh, I do too. But and again, this all goes back to the kind of maximalist design of the thing, and I want that for my dreamlike surrealist film. But then there are times where this movie kind of like zooms in a little bit, and it feels a little bit more I don't know, like it feels a little bit more new wavy, or a little bit grittier. So it's it's, I mean, can you speak to how it was filmed? Because it's definitely not a wide angle only movie,
You mean the cinematography?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was superbly shot. Use of light, the various textures. You're doing things with fabrics and water that are really fun and inventive. It's all in camera, which is really nice.
I mean, it feels like certain scenes are like shot through a cheesecloth. But it's hard to know if there's a coherence there. I feel like there is.
I feel like there is a visual coherence. Mm-hmm. They definitely had a style. The DP is Jan Kurik. Yeah, I think there's a visual coherence. I think it's a versatile film. They're using dollies, and I don't think I saw any zooms, but I could be wrong. You guys correct me.
I don't remember that.
I think what I noticed were the textures, sort of cutaways and use of visuals like different fabrics, water, things like that to give the film a lot of texture. And they're playing with light. I liked it. I liked what they did. It was simple but effective for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think if anything, it's like beautiful images, but again, it's like I don't know that the cinematography helped with the characterization either. Sometimes some movies can kind of do some of that heavy lifting too, of like
good point.
Getting some really subjective kind of angles on someone, or really leaning into close-ups. I mean, it's amazing how effective that old move can be in terms of really eliciting sympathy. But yeah, so I don't know that it did that work.
I would blame that personally on the director.
100%.
Yeah.
But it is funny to see that sometimes, the more you hear about certain productions, how some DPs are just like, we're going to lean into this because they don't have any ideas.
True. True. We're talking about the cinematography. Let's also talk about the directing since we're already there. I mean, I think that it's mostly relegated to the visuals and the blocking. That said, the visuals are arresting, but I would agree with your point, and I didn't think of it, Alison. I don't think that he's using the camera in a way that really gives us any kind of emotional insight into the characters. I think it's presentational. Again, it's kind of stand back, and he's not doing all wide shots, but it's basically stand back and look at the pretty pictures, and these are the ideas, and that's less interesting than actually being cinematic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean, we have a director here. I mean, I guess my question would be, before we can even discuss the directing, is what do you feel like a director's primary role on a movie is? And now, obviously, that can change depending on what the movie is. But, for me, it usually comes down to the director's role is to guide the performance. And it doesn't feel like Mr. Jires is guiding any performances here. It feels more like Ford Coppola on Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I love, by the way. But I
was going to say, are we going to throw down? No,
I love that film, but it feels more in that vein where the actors are kind of hung out to dry, and it's the other things that are driving the film, as you suggest, Bill. So
it feels to me like they've done half the work. So for me, the role of the director is to have a clear vision and to continuously have conversations with everyone involved to make sure that they know what that is.
Yeah.
And so when you don't do, there's been a lot of talk in recent years about stylistic films. This film is so stylistic, which usually to me means, okay, so you did half the job. Like, so half the job is talking to your heads of department about the look of it and the feel of it and the sound of it and all that. But then the other one that really is, I think, notoriously, like you say, the real job is to really connect with your actors, make them feel safe, and give them specificity. Really help them understand where you at least see the characters, and then they bring their own take to that.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing that, and I would imagine we've all been on sets where you're like, you didn't do that. And you can sense it. If I'm there helping out in some other capacity, then it's like people will sometimes come up to me and be like, I didn't get anything, so I don't know what to do in this scene. And so then I'll sort of pull the director into it and be like, we need to talk about this character a little bit, because I think sometimes there is a tendency for performance directors to feel like they don't know how to talk to heads of department, and then heads of department type, technical stylistic directors feeling like they don't know how to talk to actors. Yeah. But actors, in my opinion, they thirst for the opportunity to discuss it. Even if they don't want to talk about it a lot, they want feedback. They want a little bit of setup, and they want a little bit of feedback, like even if it's just a little nod or something, like, or that doesn't really feel true, whatever it is. Yeah. Well, so that's what it felt like. It felt like it was like, okay, you've done half of this, and I really, really want more from you. And it also, I have to admit, there's a little part of me that's maybe not that super healthy that thinks this is a man that directed this, is very male POV. And then you also didn't even bother to make them real characters. That just feels kind of entitled and yucky to me, to be frank. But also, I mean, God bless the production designer, because it really is so special just for that. I feel like this movie I would have enjoyed a lot more if I'd put it on during a party.
Yeah, totally. Turn the sound off.
Turn the sound off. Yeah. Like, the sound is not that exceptional. I didn't think,
I liked the score, but the sound is not that exceptional. Yeah, and I feel like absolutely the visuals are the VIP, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
In Jaromil Jires' defense, I think a lot of the problem with the acting is in the writing. Oh, wait, he's also one of the writers. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Well, because, sometimes actors make terrific writers, and sometimes they really don't. Because I think there's some actors that will kind of go, oh, this is the sort of feel I want. They have sort of visions of themselves in certain sorts of roles, but not know how to do that heavy lifting of the character development, how to do it economically, right? How to have like a real goal, even if it's sort of, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to go to the top of the mountain, but, something.
Right. The other character that I guess is featured prominently is the constable, or Richard, who's I believe you were also saying the priest guy with the beard, or Ricard, as he's called by the grandmother. I guess he's her lover, and that's Jiri Primek. I thought he was interesting. I think the most acting he does is when he's telling everybody what a witch Valerie is and that she should burn. I think that's
he was having fun with that.
Any feelings? Anything?
Not particularly, honestly. I mean, I thought the scene where they first meet up again was compelling, because she just the grandmother sort of humiliates herself in front of him and talks about, like, the only happiness I've ever had was when we were together for 2 weeks, like 20 years ago or whatever. Right. And he's like, oh yeah, that, like, he doesn't.
Isn't he just like sitting back in the chair, like, whatever, woman?
Yeah. Like, he's not that moved. And in fact, if anything, seems to be getting off on her humiliation. Right. Like, yeah, tell me about how I've been in your mind ever since. Right. I'm going to give you nothing.
Isn't she whipping herself or something?
I don't think at that point she was, but maybe later.
I think at the point where for some reason the vampire is like literally forcing Valerie to watch the grandmother humiliate herself in front of him,
which is an upsetting part. I mean,
it is upsetting.
I thought that was upsetting, but again, it's like upsetting because of the idea, like you said. It's like these are ideas that are upsetting, right? But not.
We don't really feel anything for the characters because we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
If we're trying to mine meaning from this, you could read that as, look, here's another way society is trying to rob you of your innocence. See, this is what it's really like, and I don't think it's doing enough lifting in that department. Oddly enough, Jires, I want to go French with it. Jires.
Do it.
Jires talks about her performance. He says that she's meant to be imperturbable so that the ironic elements of his narrative could come forward, along with the sincere ones. I don't really see it.
No.
Yeah.
What?
There's a part. Okay.
I will say though, for Beard Priest, I guess is we'll call
Sure.
Yes, there you go.
there is a scene that I did enjoy. Enjoy might be the wrong word. There's a scene that I thought was sort of compelling where they're having like kind of a meal.
Yeah, outside. Yeah, yeah.
And that was the one that seemed like the most thematically resonant, where it's just like, this is what society expects from you, little girl.
Right.
And I got a lot of that from that scene. Maybe it was even too heavy-handed in that scene, but at least there was some substance there, so I appreciated that interaction.
One of the interactions that I totally was scratching my head at, but also kind of enjoyed, was when Valerie is about to be burned, the constable priest beard guy, he says something to her like, you're going to burn, whatever it is. And she starts laughing at him, and like she sticks her tongue out at him and calls him a bearded clown or something like that. And she puts hair on her lip, like her own hair, to mock his beard. And she's like about to die. And I was like, what is happening right now? I don't understand. Like, this is the happiest I've seen her the whole movie.
Well, because I think she's one of the only moments she has some agency, because she's at least mocking the guy.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it was just odd. It was odd.
Well, again, that was part of where I was like, wow, you're even taking some of the, the tension of she's going to get burned alive by her, like, just mocking him and being like, yeah, sure, I'm totally going to die, quote unquote.
Okay, you clown. Light her up.
So odd. I mean, because it is always such a powerful image of burning a woman, because we know that this is a thing that has happened. And even though people think it happened more than it did, it was still, because I think when you really look at history, it was mostly hangings and drownings, but it was like, because it is so evocative, and it is like what it feels like to like step outside the expectations is like, oh, you're going to get burned up. Like, you're going to be in a very uncomfortable position, kind of thing. But so I did kind of enjoy her mocking it, but it was also kind of like, then it took the tension away. You're like, she's not even scared to be burned up. And then sure enough, it's no problem.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, there's just I just don't possess enough of the cultural context to know if there is something that's meant to be ironic in there.
Yes, I think that's a really good point that y'all keep making, of like, I feel like we miss out on a lot of the late potential pieces of this, but also if you have to have that much cultural knowledge to understand it,
right?
That's my argument. But
how
also
timeless can it be?
Yeah, that's my argument. But also how widespread can the actual ideas go? Like, if this is a movie about ideas and you want to talk to people, do you only want to talk to Czech people who know very specific references all the time?
Too niche? It might be.
And I'm wondering if even the audience in 1970 in Czechoslovakia was getting what was happening. Did they need to know more history, more mythology in order to understand all your references? And if so, is that an effective tale?
Or at the very least, like, if we had their background of Soviet oppression, would we feel differently about it? I don't know. We'll probably know in this society in about 20 years, but maybe I'm projecting. Yeah. Anyway, so it's hard to know without having that context either. But again, it as you say, it doesn't make it particularly relatable as world cinema.
Yeah, it's just it feels lazy to me. I mean, I guess that the ambition of the film is to talk about ideas and to say, yes, here, you remember this idea, you remember this old tale, you remember this piece of mythology or culture. That's not very interesting. That's not an interesting cinematic experience.
I mean, even details like the constable being referred to as a polecat all the time, and then when he at the end of the film is fed one of Valerie's magical earrings, actually turns into a
polecat, and he chases chickens around, and then they shoot it.
Right.
And so then he screams, we see him scream in human form too. Interesting, but so what? Like, I don't.
Yeah. Whereas I did want to bring up too, like, kind of a comparison film, which was something that struck me as a film that has a similar feeling, even though it, not production design wise, but a similar feeling, but is way more effective because the character work is so good in this. Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Have you all seen that one?
Yeah.
Jessica, why have you come here? She led me to the body. She knows who killed that man.
What man? I don't know.
Did you see anybody? Did you?
For God's sake, Jessica, leave her alone.
You still don't believe me. You don't believe there's anything strange going on.
So that one also has this sort of dreamy, a woman is in danger, but maybe she's not. But you're just with the characterization, and that is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
But this sort of dreamy imagery and wistful, what does that mean? And there's a lot of like very loaded female images in it, and loaded image. Again, what you're sort of saying about psychoanalysis, like Freudian, there's a little bit of that influence, but not so annoyingly so.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, it's like her husband's giant instrument, literal instrument that he plays.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I think that movie, if you want a similar, it doesn't have, like I say, like as much of a folk horror. If anything, a little bit of the elements of American folk horror, but as Valerie does. But I feel like, man, if you are curious of a way that you can do this mission well, you can go see that one instead.
Yeah. So any other thoughts about the acting or any of the other players? I know we talked about Orlik, who's Peter Kopriva. Anybody else that struck you guys? I liked Hedvika, the older woman who gets married. I mean, I don't know how much older she is. I don't know if she's
Like
16,
a couple of years, yeah.
16
I thought
or
she was
25.
I
don't know.
think she was a really strong actor because, again, of like what we're talking about in terms of she really made us see her discomfort with the whole thing, and then her relief at having Valerie in her life again, and that kind of thing. And I think she was very good at like economically displaying all of that. Because again, she's given almost nothing. Like there's a few sympathetic lines here and there that other people say about her, but she doesn't really get to say much.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And then
I did
there's,
like her.
I guess we should talk about, I mean, since it's in the film, we talked about the bed scene. Edvika is bitten by the vampire. She gets in bed with Valerie and they go to sleep. And then when she wakes up, the bite is gone and she thinks she's no longer a vampire. Did anybody
actually
track what was happening there?
I actually really liked that because I like the idea of like female friendship heals you.
Uh-huh.
Because I think there is something very true about that. It's
Okay.
like if a man's hurt you, go see your girls.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
probably going to feel better. And I liked the sort of literalness of that.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know,
Okay.
so I actually that was one that I did kind of go, oh, I'm following that. But
Yeah,
it is sort of like it's all just sort of like, ooh, magic.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
throughout the film. So again, there's no tension to it.
So
but
she really was cured. She really was no longer a vampire.
I thought she was cured,
Okay.
but
Okay.
who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think Alison's right on that one. I mean, I think I got this feeling of like she's shedding shedding the burden of society's expectations.
Yeah.
That's a very, I might be reaching.
No,
but
you might
No,
not
I
be.
think that's exactly
I mean,
what
she
I mean.
was the one who got
Yes.
married, so maybe
To someone she clearly didn't want to get married to.
Right.
And people were like, well, he's really rich, though. And she's like, I don't even like sitting with him. Like,
Right.
why would I marry him?
And I think when this movie does that kind of stuff, you can see how it has earned a bit of the cult following that has. Maybe that's enough for some people. I mean, it was enough for me in my first experience with it. My first experience with it was much more positive than successive viewings because, when you're not being bombarded with the design elements of it, then you really do have to sit and wrestle with all these other things we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
repeat viewings do not necessarily reward this film, but there are enough ideas like that in there that can at least maybe trick you into feeling like you shared something with this director. They don't always hold up for sure, but that is an interesting performance.
As we talked about earlier, the sound design was kind of primitive, but it's adequate. All dialogue seems post-dubbed, so I'm wondering if it was shot silent. I'm wondering if they just went back and did like the Italian thing of just doing all the dialogue later in a studio. I actually really enjoyed the music. I thought it was one of the best things about the film, and that's credited to Lubos Fiser and Jan Klusak. And just as a as a side note, a group named the Valerie Project made original songs live to the film from 2006 to 2008, and they created an alternative soundtrack also, and I guess that's included on Criterion releases.
Yeah.
It is, and I thought I saw that as well. I thought that was really interesting that they had such passion for that because I did not share it.
Right. There are a lot of fans of this movie.
I didn't, and I wasn't that moved by the score. If anything, I felt like it just kind of added to the like and then feeling of the film. But that being said, like clearly I'm outnumbered. A lot of people who have seen this love that score.
I mean, there is one theme that keeps recurring that is fairly penetrating, no pun intended, and it's like that I appreciated, but yeah, definitely nothing enough to like make me want to compose my own alternative score for this. And by the way, I was gifted this film on Criterion. I don't remember who gifted it to me or why, but they claimed when they gave it to me that I would really love it. I know that I had heard Joe Dante talk about this film. He loves it. So I was intrigued, and the first time I saw it, I had, as I described, much more positive feelings about it. But I did have I want to say misfortune of watching the film a second time with that alternative score at first, and I got maybe 20 minutes in before I had to switch it back. So,
wow.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
No, that's interesting.
But I also I love hearing who becomes champions of films,
Right.
because it's always interesting. Like I would never have put Joe Dante with this movie.
No, I don't see any.
I don't see that influence at all.
Yeah.
That and what is it? Robot Monster, the one with the ape with the space helmet on.
With the swiftness of a deadly cosmic ray, the Earth is invaded by indestructible moon monsters. Their ghastly mission, death for all humans.
Anyway, Joe Dante loves B movies.
Oh, okay.
So,
I do know that,
but
this one just seemed so much more sort of ethereal and like kind of not. There's like no sense of humor to it, or very little sense of humor to it. Where it's like that's like one of Dante's strengths.
Well, I think what it is I think it is the visual strength of this film for me is what carries it into being interesting. If it didn't have that strength, it wouldn't travel. It wouldn't last as long as it has. I want to talk about the distribution since that's kind of what we're into right now. Like how did it start and where have we gone to with Valerie? Let's murder some more Czech names here. Ústřední Půjčovna Filmu was the distributor. It showed at the Grand Premio Bergamo on September 3rd, 1970. It opened in Czechoslovakia on October 16th, 1970. And then, interestingly, it was released by a company that I used to work at. It was released on DVD by Facets Video in 2004. They're based in Chicago, and they released it in the U.S. and Canada. And then in June 2015, Criterion released a 4K restoration on DVD and Blu-ray. I watched this on Criterion Channel. How'd you guys see
that is how I watched it as well.
Yeah.
I watched it on that Blu-ray that I described.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty sparse of ancillary materials.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought maybe there might be an interesting doc on there.
Do they have a commentary?
Commentary, nothing.
Joe Dante commentary?
No, although Joe Dante did do a Trailers from Hell commentary.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Which, if listeners don't know what that is, they do commentaries on trailers, and then they kind of get into their feelings about the film a little bit. But so I watched that, and he's making a case for the film. I don't have the affinity for it that he might, but it definitely whet my appetite before I'd ever seen it.
Hi, I'm Joe Dante. This is Trailers from Hell. Valerie and Her Week of Wonders was a movie I'd never heard of when I wandered in off the street into the late lamented Encore Theater across from Paramount in 1975. The movie was 5 years old then, but it struck me as timeless. I was completely unprepared for how entrancing it was. I'd never seen a movie like it, and I still haven't. Part Alice in Wonderland, part horror movie, part erotic romance, it's an intoxicating mixture of music and imagery that's simply unforgettable. From the first drops of blood on a flower petal, we know that our 13-year-old heroine is coming of age, and she surrounds herself, or dreams she does, with an alternately beautiful and nightmarish world of open sexuality and supernatural transformations. Boyfriends become brothers, grandmothers become vampires, fathers become weasel-eating death's heads, priest figures are predators, and identities are never what they seem.
Overall strengths for me, beautifully designed, cinematography, art direction, costumes, props, hair, makeup, and the look of the actors are all fantastic. The music is beautiful, helps to alleviate some of the lack of emotion from the script, direction, and acting. Weakness, any strengths that you guys want to discuss that we haven't already?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's evocative of things like Alice in Wonderland by design.
100%.
I think that it's the dreamlike nature of it is compelling, and it is just so visually dynamic that it's worth it for that experience if you can get past the other things that we're describing about it, which might be a big hurdle for a good reason.
Yeah.
I appreciated the sort of mission of the film.
Yeah.
You know, I did. That was the stuff that I responded to.
It is a good mission. Like,
But-
talk about what women have to go through. This is good stuff.
Put us through a very artistic version of the experience of that process. I
Yeah.
appreciated that.
Yeah.
I really wish that it had been thus made by a woman or somebody that seemed to know what we were really like.
Somebody who might empathize or humanize.
Instead, it's very male gazy. So, that brings us into the cons, I guess, right?
Yeah. So the cons. We've talked about them a lot, but are there any other ways you want to put it?
No,
summarize it maybe?
I think they're so clear. I think the pros and cons in this film are really obvious. It's
Yeah.
like the pros, it's beautiful. It has a good mission. It's got good creepy elements. But then the cons are that we don't care about anyone.
Yeah.
And I was really bored a lot of the time watching the film. Just in plain speak, I was pretty bored.
Yeah.
I had to really make myself stay concentrated on it.
I did too.
And like, I love a weird, surrealist, anything you want to throw at me with some real, purpose and specificity to it, I'm down. But I did not care. Like, I kept trying so hard.
So you're going to like this. One of the things I wrote down as a weakness, the summary of the weakness I wrote, the film presents as a pretentious lot of vapid tosh.
Yeah. Yep. It does feel very pretentious. It feels very pretentious.
And if yes, as you alluded to, Alison, if you need a salve for your inability to sleep, just throw on Valerie and her Week of Wonders.
Put you right to
And
sleep.
you will be A-okay.
Yeah. Forget NyQuil.
And yeah, I'm gonna go with you guys on this one. It's impossible to pin your emotions to anything substantive in the film. It's completely on rails, and all of the production design in the world can't keep you engaged. I do wonder if this film passes the Bechdel test.
So how many scenes do women have to talk about something other than men in?
I think it's 2 or 3.
2 or 3. So I think
I'm trying to go through, but
So-
I think it does very technically because the scene of the two women in bed.
no, they talk about the vampire a little bit, don't they?
Yes, but then they also talk about like it's nice to have each other.
Yeah.
And I think technically speaking, the Bechdel test, isn't it just like literally 2 or 3 lines
I think so.
where they don't?
Oh, it's
talk-
lines. It's not scenes.
It's literally that low.
Wow.
That's how sad
Right.
it is. And that's the thing. Alison Bechdel like loves to say like, guys, that was like a joke, but I
Yeah.
want you to notice because I want you to notice that like that is so not what we want still. Like we
Right.
want way beyond that. But the fact that I could jokingly say that and then y'all are
Yeah.
grading these movies and realizing how few pass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
insane.
It is.
Well,
It
yeah.
is.
And she's
So,
even
yes.
made she's even made the point that a film can pass the test
And still be wildly,
Yeah.
offensive or
Misogynist.
yeah,
Yeah.
misogynistic. Yes, exactly.
But yeah,
we're just disinterested.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
which is obviously another form of misogyny. But in
Absolutely.
terms of level of venom,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you say, it's like because it's like there are so few yardsticks.
yeah,
It still is actually an interesting experiment worth running. But yeah, it's hard to say with this one.
Something I don't think I've said. Can I say that I liked the weird blue bald vampire? He kind of reminded me of Tim Curry, like a Czech Tim Curry, maybe.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, I can get behind that.
And I liked his teeth. I think the teeth that they the Billy Bob teeth that they put on the grandmother when she gets turned into a vampire or whatever, those were odd.
Yeah.
Like they were super weird and jagged and long and short, and it was like, oh.
Right.
But his teeth I thought were pretty good. I liked his, they look like shark teeth. I don't know about you guys, but what I learned from this film is that it's really confusing and horrible to be a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to have sex with you, especially alleged family members. And also you should make out with everyone you meet, especially family members.
Indeed.
Yep.
Any other thoughts, guys?
That it didn't have a good mission then in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would just love to see. This would be a movie that I think would be interesting to update.
Yeah, let's get the Gus Van Sant remake of this. If only we replace Gus Van Sant with the female equivalent.
No, yeah, exactly. Who would be? You guys think who would be a good contemporary female director to make the remake of Valerie and Her Week of Wonders?
This is a little bit selfish because this is a friend of mine, but I think Chelsea Stardust would really do a great job with this.
Okay.
She made Satanic Panic and all that.
Oh, I've seen Satanic Panic. Yeah,
and she has a real love of sort of stylized high style type things, but also with a lot of justified rage, kind of stuff. And so I think she would do a really interesting job with this.
Who do you think, Colin? Any ideas?
I actually would go. I might even go the other direction. Go with somebody who's not known for style because the stylistic elements will probably shine through. I was thinking like a Kelly Reichardt, or somebody like that.
Wow.
Like somebody who's like can flesh out like character with very little.
Yeah.
I want both of them.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what it takes.
I got one. I'm going to choose Julia Ducournau.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's my pick. That's my pick to remake this movie.
Yeah. These are three of my favorites, so I don't think you can go wrong.
There we go.
Or maybe like a Julia Tambor.
Oh, that's interesting. I would still pick Julia Ducournau personally.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Well, because I think, again, her strengths lie a little more in the style. So I don't know that she's going to bring the other side as much. Not to talk any crap about her, but in terms of feeling like you're going to get both sides of that.
Totally.
But it's like, I'm not a huge, I think all filmmakers not as much a huge remake fan, but I think every once in a while you come across something where you're like, I would really like to see what someone did with the mission and the feel of this film, but really
this is a perfect movie to remake, in my opinion. Perfect.
Break it open and make it more worldwide.
And more human and empathetic and feminist. Yeah, I would like that.
Yeah.
Allison, what are 3 films you've seen recently, old or new, that you'd suggest the audience check out?
Okay. One of them is not an obscure movie. A lot of people have been talking about it, but I really want everyone to see Conclave.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have not seen Conclave, I really recommend it. It is so full of compassion and high goals, high ethical and moral and mission for life kind of goals to it. And it's also a wonderful process movie. I'm obsessed with process movies, like where they really show, they go in there and really show you how the ballots are written and folded and put in and, where the cardinals stay while they're there at the Vatican. They have like shots of the cardinals, like checking their phones before they get sequestered. And, just like all of this beautiful and it's a gorgeous looking movie. And it's so chock full of incredible nuanced actors. And I just love it. I found that there is like a little subcult of those of us that are obsessed with Conclave because it's kind of like in Wet Hot American Summer where they have that joke about the kids love the China syndrome. I don't know if you guys remember that, where it's like, why would a bunch of kids at camp be obsessed with China syndrome?
Right.
Why would a bunch of like progressive liberals love this movie about choosing the next pope?
Right.
It doesn't make sense until you see the movie. And then you're like, wow, this is so full of love and ambition for humanity. Yeah. And so
something that a pope should be.
Something that exactly, because they talk in the thing about like, we have our church has been basically really almost ruined by the way that we have empowered abusers, and then also the way the world looks at us as empowering abusers. Not all of us thought that was okay. Right. So I think it's about a lot of the big questions of our time, and yet it's in a setting that I would normally never want to look at.
Yeah.
I basically usually just want Catholicism for creepy horror movies, and otherwise leave me alone.
Yeah.
You have not earned your leadership.
Right. Right.
Apart from the fact that I'm also just don't have any religious faith. I also, when I was growing up, I would go to a Unitarian church when we did go to church. And we did know a lot of Catholics because Catholics are often involved in a lot of social justice programs. But again, it's like the quote unquote good Catholics.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Because like anything else, there is corruption everywhere.
Every religion has their good and their bad.
Yeah. And can you find the pockets of people who are still trying to go forward and do good? And so this movie has a lot of hope and humanity. So, little joke for those of you who have seen Conclave: may the new pope be elected be a pope that doubts.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's one of them.
Movie number 2.
A completely different recommendation from that is a buddy comedy called One of Them Days. don't know if y'all have seen this.
No.
It's about these two Black best friend girlfriends who are in their like kind of late 20s, and it's all in one day, which is a big sucker thing for me. I love kind of an Aristotelian. Is it a compressed time or a compressed location?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely not a compressed location. It's basically the entire city of Los Angeles, it feels like. But it's about them trying to basically get their rent.
Okay.
So there's various things that kind of come into it. But I took my daughter and one of my besties to see it. And this was like one of my daughter's first kind of like grown-up movies. She's 14, but she's younger than 14, really.
Right.
And we all had a great time. It's really genuinely hilarious.
Oh, it has SZA. I love her.
Yes, the actors are terrific. 2 of 1. It's directed by Lawrence Lamont, and the screenwriter is Cyrita Singleton. And it's just a great freaking time. Like, it's a good little bomb in a different kind of way.
That's just one of these days.
One of them
days. I actually had it on my watch list. I just forgot. Yeah.
I think it's just a good time. Both of those are good, like kind of cheer you up, like in case of emergency break glass films. On the other hand, then my third movie is called Exhuma, Exhuma. It's about exhumation, like bringing bodies out of the ground.
Okay.
It's a Korean horror film.
Oh.
It's quite long and quite a process movie as well.
Okay.
And it's basically about a shaman and various related occupations that are trying to basically make this family is haunted by all the firstborn men in this family are haunted by something, and they're trying to figure out why.
Okay.
And so they go and try to figure out how to make the grave of the grandfather like consecrated.
Oh.
And it's so genuinely freaky, and it has so much detail in terms of I've never seen a movie where it was like, oh, no one doubts that these shaman like people have actual like skill and power. We don't have to go through that whole thing of like, but I think this is a bunch of hogwash.
Right.
Like, they didn't do any of that. You just get right into like, okay, we need a bunch of pigs, It's just like, and so I just really loved that. And it kept becoming a different movie than I thought it was going to be. It's consistently surprising. And like I say, freaky, and a real subculture of like, again, this occupation, this place, this like section of Korea, so it also like, I don't remember if it starts in Los Angeles, but there's also some Los Angeles in it, which I, would never have thought from the idea of it. But yeah, so those are very different kind of vibes, but I loved them all.
Fantastic. Good list. So people can check out The Apology on Hulu and many other places. And then you also have that short film that's doing festivals?
Yeah, so we just finished our festival run. I'm trying to debate whether or not I want to try to sell it to one of the smaller outlets that will do shorts, or if I just want to go ahead and throw it up on YouTube. So if I do, then I do. But you can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky, Alison Star Locke.
You jumped ahead. Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. This episode is sound engineered by Colin Dixon, edited and mixed by William Boudel. It was produced by William Boudel, Colin Dixon. Original music composed by Michael Riola. Recorded at Booze Hollywood Dell in beautiful Hollywood, California. If you'd like to contact us with comments, suggestions, or high praise, email us at cosmicmotionshow@gmail.com or send us a voice message at speakpipe.com/cosmicmotion. You can find us on the socials also at Cosmic Motion or Cosmic Motion Show. Emails, messages, audio, or other media you send us may be featured on the program. We want to thank our lovely guest, Alison Star Locke.
Thank you very much for having me. This has been great nerdy fun.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you, Alison.
Thanks to my amazing co-host, Colin.
Stay away from my earrings.
Thank you, listener, for joining us for this episode. We look forward to exploring the cinematic cosmos with you in the future. Until then, keep learning, growing, and creating.
Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
Week after week, I'm mesmerized by the focus given great films and questionable films alike. But every episode is a learning and entertaining experience.
This is hands down the best movie podcast. They cover so many different genres across so many years, from obscure movies to blockbusters.
If there's only one podcast about movies and cinema that you listen to, make it this one.
Projection Booth Podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.